Okay, guys, so I'm gonna be reading for 30 minutes to improve my language. This time, I'm not gonna be mudded. Alright, wait, I should set the timer. Timer has been set. Let's read. I forget what page I'm on. Alright. Okay. He sensed the future looking back at him out of dynasties not even dreamed. He felt him being cast out, crying, unchained, from the rings of fate. Only his name continued. I was chosen, he said. Perhaps at birth. Certainly before I had much say in it. I was chosen. Then unchoose, she said, his arm tightened around her shoulder. In time, beloved. Give me yet a little time. Unshed tears burned her eyes, his eyes. We should return to Sish Tabr, Johnny said. There's too much to contend with this tent of stone. That's a really good metaphor for a king. Johnny said, there's too much to contend. Yeah. He nodded, his shin moving against the smooth fabric of the scarf which covered her hair. The soothing spice smell of her filled his nostrils. Proof that I'm reading. Sish. The ancient Chakobso word absorbed him. A place of retreat and safety in a time of peril. Shawnee's suggestions made him long for vistas of open sand, for clean distances where one could see an enemy coming from a long way off. Tribes expect Muad'Dib to return to them, she said. She lifted her head to look at him. You belong to us. I belong to a vision, he whispered. He thought of the jihad, of the gene mingling across Parsees, and the vision which told him how he might end it. Should he pay the price? All the hatefulness would evaporate, dying as fires die, ember by ember, but oh, the terrifying price. I never wanted to be a god, he thought. I wanted only to disappear like a jewel of trace dew caught by morning. I wanted to escape the angels and the damned, alone, as though by an oversight. Will we go back to the siege? Johnny pressed. Yes, he whispered as he thought, I must pay the price. Johnny heaved a deep sigh, settled back at him, against him. I've loitered, he thought. He saw Al-King bin Hamid in the boundaries of love and the jihad. In what was one life, no matter how beloved, against all the lives in the jihad was certain to take. Could single misery be weighed against the agony of multitudes? Love, Johnny said, questioning. He put a hand against her lips. I yield up myself, he thought. I'll rush out while I yet have the strength. Fly through a space a bird might not find. It was a useless thought, and he knew it. The jihad would follow his ghost. What could he answer, he wondered. How explain when people taxed him with brutal foolishness? You might understand. I wanted only to look back and say, there's an existence which couldn't hold me. See, I vanish. No restraint or net of human devising can trap me ever again. I renounce my religion. This glorious instinct is mine. I'm free. What empty words. A big room was seen below the shield wall yesterday, Shami said. More than 100 meters long. They say big ones come rarely into this region anymore. The water repels them, I suppose. They say this one came to summon Muad'Dib home to his desert. She pinched his chest. Don't laugh at me. I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing. Paul, caught by wonder at the persistent Fremen mythos, felt a heart constriction. A thing inflicted upon his lifeline. A dab. The demanding memory. He recalled his childhood dream on Caladan then. A dark night in the stone chamber. A vision! It'd been one of the earless, prescient moments. He felt his mind dive into the vision. Saw through a veiled cloud memory, vision within vision. A line of Fremen. their robes trimmed with dust. They paraded paraded past the gap in tall rocks. They carried a long cloth-wrapped burden. And Paul heard himself say in the vision, "It was mostly sweet, but you were sweetest of all." A dab released him. You're so quiet, Shawnee whispered. "What is it?" Paul shuddered, sat up, faced the burden. "You're angry because I've been to the desert's edge," Shawnee said. He shook his head without speaking. "I only went because I wanted child," Shawnee said. Paul was unable to speak. He felt himself consumed by the raw power of that early vision. Terrible purpose. In that moment, his whole life was a limb shaken by the departure of a bird. And the bird was chance, free will. "I succumb to the lure of the oracle," he thought, and he sensed that succumbing to this lure might be to fix himself upon a single track life. Oh my god! Could it be, he wondered, that the oracle didn't tell the future? Could it be that the oracle made the future? That's a very good and deep thought. Had he exposed his life to some web of underlying threads, trapped himself there in that long ago awakening, victim of a spider future which even now advanced upon him with terrifying jaws? A many Jesuit axiom slipped into his mind. To use raw powers is to make yourself infinitely vulnerable to random powers. "I know it angers you," Shawnee said, touching his arm. "It's true that the tribes have revived old rites and blood sacrifices, but I took no part in those." Ah! Paul inhaled a deep, trembling breath. The torrent of his vision dissipated, became a deep, still place whose currents moved with absorbing power beyond his reach. "Please," Shawnee begged, "I want a child. Our child. Is that a terrible thing? I need a child in me, please." Paul caressed her arm where she touched him. Pulled away, he climbed from his bed, extinguished the glow globes, crossed the balcony window, opened the draperies. The deep desert could not intrude here except by its odors. The windowless wall climbed to the night sky across from him, and moonlight slanted down into an enclosed garden, sentinel trees and broad leaves. What foliage! He could see a fishpond reflecting stars among the leaves, pockets of white floral brilliance in the shadows. Momentarily, he saw the garden through feminine eyes. Alien, menacing, dangerous in its waste of water. Thought of the water sellers, their ways destroyed by the lavish dispersing from his hands. They hated him. He'd slain the past. And there were others, even there were others, even those who fought for the souls to buy precious water, who hated him for changing the old ways. As the ecological patterns dictated by Muad'Dib remained the planet's landscape, human resistance increased. Was it not presumptions, he wondered? Presumptuous, he wondered? To think he could make over an entire planet, everything growing where and how he told it to grow. Even if he succeeded, what of the universe waiting out there? Did it fear similar treatment? Abruptly, he closed the draperies, sealed the ventilators. He turned towards Shawnee in the darkness, felt her waiting there. Her water rings trickled like the alms bells of pilgrims. He groped his way to the sound, encountering her outstretched arms. "Beloved," she whispered, "have I troubled you?" Her arms enclosed his future as they enclosed him. "Not you," he said. "Oh, not you." I'm sorry, I didn't know what word was next. Okay. The advent of the field prostitution. Alright, that's just some war stuff. Alright, the old man stood in his doorway, peering out with blue eyes. The eyes were veiled by that native suspicion all desert folks held for strangers. Bitter lines tortured the edges of his mouth where it could be seen through a fringe of white beard. He wore no still suit and said much that he ignored this fact in the full knowledge of the moisture pouring from his house through the open door. Sighthill bowed, gave the greeting signal of the conspiracy. From somewhere behind the old man came the sound of a rebec wailing through the antonal dissonance of Smuda music. The old man's manner carried no drug dullness, an indication that Smuda was the weakness of another. It seemed strange to Scythiel, though, to find that sophisticated vice in its place. Greetings from afar, Scythiel said, smiling through the flat-faced features he had chosen for this encounter. It occurred to him then that this old man might recognize the chosen face. Some of the older Fremen here on Dune had known Duncan Idaho. Oh, that is Fanny. The choices of features, which he had thought amusing, might have been a mistake, Satil decided. But he dared not to change the face out there. He cast nervous glances up and down the street. Will the old man never invite him inside? You know my son? The old man asked. That, at least, was one of the countersigns. Sightail made the proper response, all the time keeping his eyes alert for any suspicious circumstance in his surrounding. He did not like his position here. The street was a cul-de-sac ending in this house. The houses all around had been built for veterans of the Jihad. They formed a suburb of Arakin, which stretched into the Imperial Basin past Taimag. The walls which Hamid in the street present blank faces of dun plasmat broken by dark shadows of sealed doorways, and here and there scrawled obscenities. I do not know what I just read. Behind this very door, someone had chalked a pronouncement that one bearers had brought back to Arrakis a loathsome disease, which deprived him of his manhood. You come in partnership? The old man asked. Alone, Saito said. The old man cleared his throat, still hesitating in the batting way. Saito cautioned himself to patience. Contact in this fashion carried its own dangers. Perhaps the old man knew some reason for carrying on this way. It was the proper hour, though. The pale sun stood almost directly overhead. People of this quarter remained sealed in their houses to sleep through the hot part of the day. Was it the new neighbor who bothered the old man? Saito wondered. The adjoining houses, he knew, had been assigned to Odin, once a member of Muad'Dib's dreaded Fedaykin death commandos, and Bitaz, the catalyst dwarf, waited with Odium. Saito returned his gaze to the old man, noted. The empty sleeve dangled from his left shoulder in the lack of a still suit. An air of command hung about this old man. He'd been no footslogger in the Jihad. May I know the visitor's name? The old man asked. Saito suppressed a sign of relief. He was to be accepted after all. I am Zal, he said. That is a lie. Given the name assigned for him for this mission, I am Farouk, the old man said. Once Basar of the 9th Legion in the Jihad. Does this mean anything to you? Saito read menace in all the words. Said, You were born in the Tish Tower with allegiance to Stilgar. Farouk relaxed, stepped aside. You are welcome in my house. Saito slipped past him in a shadowy atrium. Blue tile floor, glitter designs, worked in crystal on the walls. Beyond the atrium was a covered courtyard. Light admitted by the translucent filter spread on the opaline fence, as silvery as the white night of the first moon. The street door grated into its moisture seals behind them. We are a noble people, Farouk said, leading the way towards the courtyard. We were not of this caste now. We live in no graven village such as this. We had a proper siege in the seashore above Habayana Ridge. One worm could carry us to Kedmen, the inner desert. Not like this, Scytale agreed, realizing now what had brought Fabric into the conspiracy. The Fremen longed for the old days and the old ways.
I see.
Farouk struggled with an intense dislike for his visitor, Scytale realized. From distressed eyes that were not the total blue of the Evad. Offworlders, Fremen said, had unfocused eyes which saw things they were not supposed to see. The Semuda music had stopped at their entrance. It was replaced now with the strum of a Bali set, first a 9-scale chord, then the clear notes of a song which popular on the Naraj worlds. As his eyes adjusted to the light, Scytale saw a youth sitting cross-legged on a low divan beneath arches to his right. The youth's eyes were empty sockets, with that uncanny facility of the blind. He began singing the moment Scytale focused on him. His voice is high and sweet. A wind has blown the land away and blown the sky away. And all the men who is this wind, the trees stand unbent. Drinking where men drink. I've known too many worlds, too many men, too many trees, too many winds. Well, those were not the original words of the song, Scytale noted. Farouk led him away from the youth and under the arches of the opposite side. Indicated cushioning scattered all over the tile floor. The tile was worked into designs of sea creatures. There is a cushion once occupied in siege by Muad'Dib, Farouk said, indicating a round black mound. It's yours now. I am in your debt, Scytale said, sinking to the black mound. He smiled. Farouk displayed wisdom. A sage spoke of loyalty even while listening to the songs of hidden meanings and words with secret messages. Who could deny the terrifying powers of the tyrant emperor? Inserting words across the song without breaking the meter, Farouk said. Does my son's music disturb you? Scytale gestured to a cushion facing him, put his back against the cool pillar. I enjoy music. My son lost his eyes in the conquest of Naraj, Farouk said. He was nursed there and should have stayed. No woman of the people will have him thus. I find it curious, though, to know I have grandchildren on Naraj that I may never see. Do you know the Naraj world, all? In my youth, I toured there with the trope of my fellow face dancers, Scytale said. You are a face dancer then, Farouk said. I had wondered at your feature. They remind me of a man I knew here once. Duncan Idaho! Yes, that one. A swordmaster at the Emperor's pay. He was killed, so it was said. So it is said, Farouk agreed. And you truly a man then. I've heard stories about face dancers that, he shrugged. We are Jadka hermaphrodites, Scytale said. Either sex at will. For the present, I am a man. Farouk pursed his lips in thought. Then, may I call for refreshments? Do you desire water, ice fruit? Talk what suffice, Dork Scytale said. Let's take a look. Oh. The guest wish is a command, Farouk said, setting the cushions to which faced Scytale. Blessed is Abdur, father of the indefinite roads of time, Scytale said, and he thought, there, I told him straight out that I come from a guild steersman and wear the steersman concealment. Thrice blessed, Farouk said, folding his hands into his lap in the ritual clasp. They were old, heavily veined hands. An object seen from a distance betrays only its principle, Scytale said, revealing that he wished to discuss the Emperor's fortress keep. That which is dark and evil may be seen for evil at any distance, Farouk said, advising delay. Why, Scytale wondered, but he said, how did your son lose his eyes? The Naraj defenders used a stone burner. Derek said. My son was too close. Damned atomics. Even the Stoneburner should be outlawed. It skirts the intent of the law, Saito agreed. And he thought, a Stoneburner on Mirage? We weren't told of that. Why does this old man speak of Stoneburners here? I offered to buy Talaxlu eyes from him for your masters, Ferric said. But there's a story in the Legions that Talaxlu eyes enslave their users. My son told me that such eyes are metal and he is flesh. That such a union must be sinful. Oh, I get it. That is a nice metaphor, Tytil said. The principle of an object must fit its original intent, Tytil said, trying to turn the conversation back to the information he sought. Ferric's lips went thin, but he nodded. Speak openly of what you wish, he said. We must put our trust in your steersman. Have you ever entered the Imperial Keep? Tytil asked. I was there for the feast celebrating the Molitor victory. It was cold in all that stone despite the best Ixian space heaters. We slept on the terrace of Alia Fans the night before. He had trees in there, you know. Trees from many worlds. We, Bashar, were dressed in our finest green robes and had our tables set apart. We ate and drank too much. I was disgusted with some of the things I saw. The walking wounded came dragging themselves along on their crutches. I do not think our Muad'Dib knows how many men he has maimed. You objected to the feast, Saito asked, speaking from a knowledge of the Fremen orgies, which were ignited by spice beer. It was not like mingling of our souls in the siege, Farrokh said. There was no Tao. For entertainment, the tropes had slave girls, and the men had the stories of their battles and their wounds. So you were inside that great pile of stones, Saito said. Muad'Dib came out to us on the Terran, Farrokh said. Good fortune to us all, he said. The greeting drill of the desert in that place. Do you know the location of his private apartment? Saito asked. Deep inside, Farrokh said. Somewhere deep inside. Ooh, you know what else? I am told he and Shani live a nomadic life, and that all within the walls of their keep. Out to the Great Hall he comes for public audiences. He has reception halls, informal meeting places, a whole wing for his personal guard, places for the ceremonies, and an intersection for communications. There is a room far beneath his fortress, I am told, where he keeps a stunted worm surrounded by a water moat, with which to poison it. Here is where he reads the future. Myth is all tangled up with facts, Saito thought. The apparatus of the government accompanies him everywhere, Farrokh grumbled. Clerks in attendance and attendants for the attendants. He trusts only the ones such as Stilgar who are very close to him in the old days. Not you, Saito said. I think he has forgotten my existence, Farrokh said. How does he come and go when he leaves that building, Saito said. He has a tiny Thanopter landing which juts from an inner wall, Farrokh said. I am told Muad'Dib will not permit another to handle the controls for a landing there. It requires an approach, so it is said. But the slightest miscalculation would plunge him down in a sheer cliff off wall into one of his accursed gardens. Saito nodded. This is most likely was true. Such an aerial entry to the Emperor's quarters would carry a certain measure of security. The Atreides were superb pilots, all. He used meant to carry distraint messages, Farrokh said. It's a means meant to implant wave translators in them. A man's voice should be his own to command, and should not carry another man's message hidden within its sounds. Saito shrugged. All great powers use distraints in this age. One could never tell what obstacle might be placed between sender and addressee. The distraints defied political cryptology because it relied on subtle distortions of natural sound patterns, which could be scrambled with enormous intricacy. Even his tax officials used this method. Pharaoh complained. In my day, this change was implanted only in the lower animals. But revenue information must be kept secret, Saito thought. More than one government has fallen because people have discovered the real extent of official wealth. How do the Fremen cohorts feel now about Muad'Dib's jihad? Saito said. Do they object to making a god out of their emperor? Most of them don't even consider this, Farrak said. They think of the jihad the way I thought of it, most of them. It is the source of strange experiences, adventure, wealth. This Graben hovel in which I live, Farrak said, gesturing at the courtyard. It cost 60 litas of spice, 90 kontars. There was a time where I could not even imagine such riches. He shook his head. Across the courtyard, the blind youth took up the note of a lovely ballad on his valise said. 90 konarts, Saito thought. How strange. Great riches, certainly. Farrak's hovel would certainly be a palace on many another world. But all things relative, even the Kontar. Did Farrak, for example, know whence he came, his measure for this weight of spice? Did he ever think to himself that 1.5 Kontar once limited in a camel load? Did he ever think to himself that? Once limited a camel load? Not likely. Farrak might have never even heard of a camel or the golden age of Earth. His words oddly in rhythm to the melody of his son's belly said. Farrak said, I owned a crysknife, water rings to 10 liters, my own land which had been my father's, a coffee service, a bottle made of red glass older than any memory in my siege. I had my own share of our spice, but no money. I was rich and did not know it. 2 wives I had. One plain and good to me, the other stupid and obscene, with the form and a face of an angel. I was a Fremen naive, rider of worms, rider of my wives, master of the Leviathan in the sand. The youth across the courtyard picked up the beat of his melody. I knew many things without the need to think about them, Farrak said. I knew there was water far beneath our sand, held there in the bondage by the little makers. I knew that my ancestors sacrificed virgins to Shai Hulud before Liakines made us stop. It was wrong of us to stop. I had seen the jewels in the mouth of a worm. My soul had 4 gates and I knew them all. He felt silent, musing. Then the Atreides came with his witch mother, Saito said. Then the Atreides came, Farrak agreed. The ones we named Usul Masish, his name private among us. Armadi. And when he called for the jihad, I was the one of those who asked, why should I go to fight there? I have no relatives there. But other men went, young men, friends, companions of my childhood. When they returned, they spoke of wizardry, of the power in this Atreides savior. He fought our enemy, the Harkonnen, Liakines, who had promised us a paradise upon this planet. Bless him. It was said this Atreides came to change our world and our universe. Said that he was the man to make the golden flower blossom in the night. Farrak held up his hand, examined the palms. Men pointed to the first moon and said, his soul is there. Thus he was called Muad'Dib. I did not understand all this. He lowered his hands, stared across the courtyard at his son. I had no thoughts in my head. There were thoughts only in my heart and my belly and my Leon's. Again, the tempo of the background music increased. Do you know why I enlisted in the jihad? The old eyes stared hard at Saltail. I heard there was a thing called a sea. It's very hard to believe in a sea when you lived only among our dunes. We have no seas. Men of Dune had never known a sea. We had our windcraft. We collected water for the great change the Akines promised us. This great change Muad'Dib is bringing with a wave of his hand. I could imagine a qanat, water flowing across the land in a canal. From this, my mind could picture a river, but a sea? Pharaoh gazed in the translucent cover of his courtyard, as though trying to probe into the universe beyond. A sea, he said, voice low. It was too much for my mind to picture. Yet men I knew said that they had seen this marvel. I thought they had been lied. I thought they lied, but I had known for myself that it was the reason I enlisted. The youth struck a loud final chord on the bell set, took up a new song with an oddly undulating rhythm. Did you find your sea? Saito said. Farrokh remained silent, and Saito thought the old man had not heard. The Bali said music rose around them and felt like a tidal movement. Farrokh breathed to its rhythm. There was a sunset, Farrokh said presently. One of the elder artists might have painted us such a sunset. It had reddened the color of the glass in my bottle. There was gold, blue. It was on the world they call Enfield, the one where I led my legion to victory. We came out of a mountain pass where the air was thick with water. I could scarcely breathe it. And there below me was the thing my friends had told me about. Water as far as I could see and farther. We marched down to it. I waded into it and drank. It was bitter and made me ill, but the wonders of it had never left me. Saito found himself sharing the old Flemin's awe. I immersed myself in that sea, Farrokh said, looking down at the water creatures worked into the tiled floor. And that was reading for 30 minutes so I could speak better with my companions. Okay, goodbye.